Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today we're back with client success expert and podcaster Wil Schmidt. Hey, Will, welcome back.
Sophia, thanks for having me back. Excited to be here.
Of course, we're excited to have you back, Will. And today I want to talk all about podcasting with you. So, Will, what advice would you give to an aspiring podcaster on creating engaging and valuable content for their audience through a new podcast?
Yeah, the advice I would give a new podcaster looking to, engage a new audience is narrow your audience to one particular person and try to personify it. So if you, for example, depending on your topic, think of one person who maybe you know in your life who this topic would really resonate with. What would resonate with them? Why would they want to listen to it? What would be compelling? Are you trying to influence action? Are you trying to influence knowledge? And really narrow it to that. If you don't have somebody in your life who you think would really resonate with the topic, then think of that ideal person, and kind of map it out. Like, what is what is their demographic? What is their persona? What are the things, again, like I was mentioning earlier, that would really resonate with them? Because I think sometimes what I've found with people who try to get into podcasting is they think too broad. And we all want to reach a lot of people because we feel passionate about what we want to share. And so that makes complete sense. But I had somebody give me the feedback, narrow it to that just one person, depending on that top, and you can change it, right? Like based on your topic, you're gonna have different topics throughout it. But if you really think about one person, who could you speak to with this and connect with, actually that will help broaden your horizon.
I really like that. I feel like that's very similar to almost an investment strategy where, invest in what you're using, what people are using, who's using what you want to, invest in or what you're using. And, you kind of build that persona around, even when you're thinking of who you're selling your book to or who you're podcasting to, you think of that person and you kind of think, okay, where do they go on Saturday? Who are their friends? What do they like to read? Where do they like to vacation? And it's a really fun exercise to kind of build your market person, and your market kind of stereotype. But
Oh,
I want to
totally.
move. Yeah, yeah. Now I want to move a little bit more onto the technical side of podcasting. How do you prepare for a podcast episode?
So again, this will not work for everybody, but I do have a co-host, so that's a little different. Not everyone does that. And we literally prep 5 minutes before the episode. Like we're like, what do we want to talk about? We go, I mean, these are things that Nick and I talk about all the time. We talk about leadership because we're in leadership roles and we're passionate about cultivating leadership attributes with people. We also are both entrepreneurs. We have a travel agency and we love the travel. And so, when we talk about that those things come pretty organic. And then of course, sports. Nick is a former professional basketball player in Europe. I was not a professional athlete, but I did play sports a lot and I enjoy watching it. So those are pretty good. And when we first came up with the idea about doing the podcast, I was really nervous because I'm like, who's going to want to listen to us and what are we going to talk about? And we are actually 71 episodes in from October when we started, because we do it 3 times a week. And we've never run out of topics. We've never had an issue about filling the time because we try to keep it between 25 and 30 minutes. And it's really flowed a lot easier. But I know for some people, that may not be as fluid with that, and that's okay. And I think, similar, we talked in the previously about how to prepare for a speech. Similar thing, try to keep a broad outline. Don't be too specific. Don't write too many things because then it'll come off as scripted or like you're reading. But, if you're worried about missing some key points, have a few things maybe in a whiteboard that's behind the camera that you can see or whatever. So it's easier to see and it doesn't look like you're looking at it.
Now, do you have a similar approach when you are, say, interviewing guests or talking about maybe some more complex topics that both of you are still learning about?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll continue to iterate and refine it, but when we have guests, we also like to keep it very in the flow. Like, what does the guest want to talk about? And we make sure, is there any questions they want us to ask? And then we do that. And same thing, we've probably had, oh gosh, I don't even know how many guests now, but a lot more recently. We're doing a lot more, and it works really well. In fact, we're finding it's tough to end on time with the guests because they get in a rhythm and they share a lot, but that's great for our listeners, so we're fine with it.
Yeah, I really do love that. And I think it's good for especially our authors to know because it's either talky or it's scripted. And so if you are trying to build a brand, be your authentic self, get listeners that really are on board with that, you've got to have a talkie. And so there it can't be, like you said, too prepared, too scripted. Just be yourself, have fun with it. And you can have some notes, but I think on the fly is fun because podcasts are conversations as if we were actually sitting down together, just having a cup of coffee. Nobody's going to pull out their script. So,
Yeah,
so
right.
yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it really resonates more often than not with the audience because you come across as authentic and genuine and human, as crazy as that
Yeah.
sounds, but it matters.
Oh, I know, right? In the
Yeah.
age of AI, we still got to be human, Will.
Are we real? Are we real? Yeah, yeah,
Is
yeah,
this
yeah,
real?
yeah, 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 exactly.
That's great. Now, do you use a company for editing and distribution?
We do, and I have to say, Vincent Lancy is the owner of it, and we use a company to do the editing because, as I mentioned, both Nick and I, we have full-time jobs. We're senior leaders in a Fortune 500 company. We also are entrepreneurs. And while I love technology, I'm not the most savvy. Like, I'm not the one who's going to be editing the sound and doing the video. Like, you got to know your strengths and your weaknesses. So, we use Vince, and he has been an absolute godsend. He makes it so easy for us that literally all we do is focus on the recordings and putting out quality content, and they take care of everything else. They do the sound editing, the video editing, they do our social media posting for us. So it really is a lighter lift for me, which is really what I need if I'm going to do it 3 times a week like we do in the podcast. I can't
Hmm.
be doing a lot of editing with all the other things I have going on in my life.
Well, that's great insight. I think that's important because, a lot of authors are authors on the side. And if they want to start a podcast, that also is another kind of job for them. So looking into some of those things, like somebody to edit and distribute is a great idea. Now, lastly, I just want to ask you, Will, how do you promote your podcast to reach a broader audience and maintain your listener engagement that you currently have?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sophia. The way that I promote the podcast and try to make sure keeping the audience engaged is really multifaceted. So I have a pretty good following on LinkedIn because of the role that I have full time with my leadership role in the company. So not everyone's going to have that, but I have a pretty good embedded audience. And so when I post things on LinkedIn and it's certainly about leadership, that gets a lot of traction. Again, we're on all the major social media platforms. So we're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TikTok, IG, Facebook. So you name it, we have posts and we do daily postings because I think the main thing is be consistent. So if you don't have the time where you can do daily postings, but you can do them 4 or 5 times a week, pick the same day each week and try to do it at the same time because actually people are creatures of habit. And then when you get in that rhythm of posting, your audience will kind of be resonating with that and they'll see it and that helps. Then of course we do interviews and so it's great. We have guests and that helps. And then certainly grateful to be on your podcast and that certainly helps as well. And then Nick is a best-selling author, Amazon author with his book. I'm in the process of writing a book. We're both doing our speaking businesses and trying to build on that. And so I think a lot of things are interconnected. I think sometimes people think in terms of it has to be A or B. And I would challenge people replace the word or with and. How do you do A and B? So if you're doing a podcast, how do you do a podcast? And are there other ways you can monetize off it with other areas and find those tissues of connectiveness and put it out there? Because when people start following you and building an audience, and we're seeing this, like I mentioned, Nick and I we're in since October. So it hasn't been a very long time, but we're getting a lot of traction because we're consistent with the time, how often we post, and then resonating with our audience on the topics we're talking about.
Well, Will, thank you so much. That was wonderful insight on podcasting.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
That's all the time we have for today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to today's interview with client success expert and podcaster Will Schmidt. Be sure to check out our website for more videos. Wishing you all a fulfilling and successful writing journey.